across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. John Pienaar at Drive on Times Radio.
Hello, I'm John Pienaar with Drive on Times Radio. Thanks for joining me. Now, 1 in 4 teenagers between 13 and 17, according to a startling report, have turned to an AI chatbot for mental health support in the past year. Can that really be true? I mean, however you define mental health support, if it simply means troubled young people needing someone to talk to privately and turning to their smartphone, it's more than sad, isn't it? It's worrying, don't you think? Think of teenagers under real mental strain and needing expert personal help, relying on a computer program that's built to sound like a friend, tell them what they want to hear, and then go on to encourage them to come back again and again for more. There have been allegations, lawsuits from parents who blame chatbots for leading their children to suicide. Allegations strongly denied, of course, by tech companies. And fear of ours and our children's reliance on pocket tech has reached a pitch. Australia, of course, is about to ban under-16s from social media, or try to do that. And on today's show, we're going to be looking at our teenagers turning to chatbots for help and personal contact. Could it be a comfort in some cases? And if it is a worry, then what exactly is the problem? So, what are you thinking? Send me a text, 87222. Start with the word Times or a tweet to @TimesRadio. And a little bit later on the programme, Ukraine could be days away from receiving around €100 billion from the EU and the UK to stay in the war with Russia and keep the country going. Well, how would it be spent? It's badly needed, and maybe more so after President Trump's latest attack on European leaders as weak heads of decaying countries, which may just add to fears of Donald Trump walking away from the search for peace in Ukraine. We're going to be talking about that too. First, though, a survey of 11,000 teenagers aged between 13 and 17 suggests a quarter of these young people in England and Wales are turning to AI for mental health support. That's 40% among teens exposed to youth violence. Many claim chatbots feel more private, less judgmental, and are quicker to respond than the overwhelmed NHS services. Experts warn that AI isn't built for therapeutic care, and it risks harmful guidance without proper regulation. So let's first of all check in on some of the background to this with Rosie Weatherly, who's from the mental health charity Mind. Rosie, welcome to the programme.
Hi, thanks, John. Nice to be here.
It's good to have you here. So teenagers using, and in many cases relying on chatbots for mental and emotional support. Rosie, what is the evidence that is happening?
Well, the study that's kind of triggered this conversation is of 11,000 children aged between 13 and 16 in England and Wales. And the study found that, as you said, half of teenagers have used some form of online mental health support in the last year, and 25% having specifically used AI chatbots. And that research was carried out by the Youth Endowment Fund. And they found that young people affected by serious violence were even more likely to seek help online.
Well, that's a pretty worrying metric on its own. I mean, what is the evidence that we have on the way these chatbots are being used by these young people?
I mean, I'm not a tech expert, and we're still learning about AI ourselves, and there's lots to be discovered. We are quite concerned about the potential risks of using AI for mental health support. And this isn't just for young people. This is not just our teenagers. This is all of us. But we are particularly concerned about groups that might be more vulnerable, including young people with existing mental health problems, for example. So using AI, it's not, as a therapist, in inverted commas, is not something that Mind would recommend, because this current safeguards don't seem to be fit for purpose. We're hearing anecdotal evidence and reports of people becoming a little bit dependent on AI, and we're hearing more and more cases of people becoming actually quite unwell following extensive AI use. That being said, we understand completely why someone would turn to AI for mental health support. And so we're not condemning or judging anyone that does so, because we know that the reasons that people are using it are because they feel it's the best, or in many cases, the only way to get the support they need. And we've had anecdotal accounts from people who find AI very helpful. We know that different things work for different people.
Yes, and none of this has anything to do with pointing fingers of blame, at least of what young people who feel they need to talk to listen to read chatbots. It's about why are they doing this and what can we learn from that for the sake of our young people. And what about maybe this particular worrying feature of teenagers involved in youth violence, either as victims or as perpetrators of violence, relying on these chatbots in particular?
Yeah, I mean that's so troubling, isn't it? That potentially the most vulnerable parts of our youth are being potentially the most failed. I mean, in Mind's big mental health report, we highlighted that actually young people's access to that early support has really fallen away in recent years. So youth service funding in England has dropped by 73% since 2010, and specialist mental health services continue to face, that growing demand that they can't meet. So it's really important that we get more youth future hubs and better provision more just generally for our young people, so they don't feel like AI is their only choice.
Right. Rosie Weatherly at Mind. Really good to talk to you. Thank you. Now, I want to welcome to the show Ross Harper, who is the founder at Limbic, which is the only clinically verified AI chatbot. Ross, we spoke a little while ago in another context. It's good to have you back.
Good to be back, John. Thanks for having me.
So Ross, as the one behind this, the only verified AI chatbot for this kind of use, most of them are not, it follows. What is the thing to worry about in that?
I think it's over-reliance on generic chatbots that have not been trained for mental health applications and are not integrated into standard mental health care pathways. And if we rely on these generic chatbots for clinical care, then we enter into scenarios where there can be great risk. And so one of the things that I think worries me is that, as Rosie pointed out, there is a huge need. People are turning en masse to chatbots for mental health support, but they are beginning to share very vulnerable thoughts and feelings. And you can create these scenarios when you don't have a clinically trained mental health chatbot. You create these scenarios where individuals can actually be placed at greater risk, and there is no escalation pathway for them.
Right. So Ross, just to bring this home for us, can you just give me an example of a hypothetical conversation between a young person and your chatbot, and a young person and an unregistered chatbot, and how they would differ and why one may be a cause of real concern?
Yeah, I can give you two examples. One might be about protocol adherence and protocol compliance. So perhaps a young person using a generic chatbot who may be struggling with an eating disorder. It's very common for a generic chatbot, because it's been trained to engage, please, and be a sycophant to its users.
Yes.
Might endorse the idea of going on a diet and present multiple different diets that could be useful for the user to consider. Whereas Limbic, knowing the clinical context, understanding the protocol with someone with an eating disorder, might challenge those beliefs and deliver cognitive behavioral therapy. So that is one example. Another, which gets a lot of media attention at the moment, and for good reason, is risk of self-harm or suicidal intent. And we have already seen concrete examples of general purpose mental health chatbots like ChatGPT or Character AI, where we have seen the most tragic outcomes, where young people have taken their own lives, and the general purpose chatbot has actually supported with the help of drafting a suicide note or giving advice.
Yes.
I think that makes the blood run cold. And in contrast to this, Limbic has specialist models that detect risk of self-harm and escalate up the chain to a human clinician for care governance in such scenarios.
Well, those are really, really vivid and shocking examples. And I suppose you could extend it quite easily to loneliness, which is something which afflicts young people and old people. Rely on a chatbot. It's not going to cure your loneliness. It's going to mean you withdraw into your own digital space. Is there such a thing as an answer to this? I suppose we could have more accredited, properly trained chatbots, but otherwise, what would you say?
I think clinical validation is non-negotiable. We have to be looking at peer-reviewed clinical studies that demonstrate impact and also safety. The second piece of the puzzle is regulatory approval. Limbic is a Class 2 medical device, so we have that oversight from the regulator and the necessary quality assurance processes. And then the third piece of the puzzle is integration into healthcare. This shouldn't stand separately. It shouldn't be happening outside. Mental health chatbots, when clinically validated, can be brought into the umbrella of healthcare, and then you can escalate up to trained mental health professionals when the situation dictates.
Yeah.
That's safe.
I mean, Ross, it's not too apocalyptic or anti-progress or even Luddite, is it, to worry that we as a society are losing our humanity as tech advances and fills more of our lives?
I think this is something that we wrestle with a lot at Limbic. I personally am of the view that when done right, AI will help people live much more fulfilled, happy, healthier, and more sociable existences. I also think that our humanity evolves through the technology that we use. I think society has evolved with the advent of the internet, and I think AI is another accelerant that will actually change society and change culture and update our beliefs around what it actually means to be human.
Okay, Ross Harper, fascinating to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining me once again. Now, if you have been affected by